I'm going to keep my introduction really brief. What I want to do is actually find out from you guys, because I know that there's a really wide range of experiences that people have had with doing search engine optimization. So I just want to know from you guys now, just a show of hands, so that we can all tailor the responses of the panel tonight to what really is important to you guys. How many people have actually tried to do search engine optimization already? Okay. And how many of you, for those who haven't, I would just, some comments and feedback as to why. Can I pick on you, Boris, because I know who you are?
I think I have.
What was that?
I think I have.
You think you have, but you're not sure.
We've outsourced it.
You've outsourced it.
Right.
Okay, interesting. All right, so we've got some people who've actually tried doing SEO. I think most of you kind of understand some of the terminology. You know what a keyword is? Yes. Know what a keyword is? Great. Know what a SERP is? A search engine results page? Yes. Okay, great. So I don't think we need to cover any of the super basics. Does that sound good to you guys? So what I'm going to do is introduce the panelists. Thank you. So I can stop yelling. So first of all, my name is Manisha Walker. I own a company called Message Medium. We work with entrepreneurs, startups, up to mature companies, about $5 to $10 million in revenue, in terms of helping them get online and grow their businesses through the internet. I also teach a number of free classes, which I know I mentioned last time, that are sponsored by the City of New York. You can visit my website to get information about that. I'm also the recent e-commerce columnist, online columnist for Inc. magazine. So you can come and check that out. So I'm going to introduce the panelists now. Rigo Flowers.
Hi there, everyone.
So Rigo is Comet Conversion's lead SEO strategist, overseeing all of the strategy development deployment for Comet's clients. He also leads the implementation team of the on-page optimization department. In addition to developing cutting-edge SEO and social media strategies, Rigo is also a web developer, video editor, and a general techie. Professional accounts with a variety of clients in the automotive, airline, financial, government, and entertainment industries, and led initiatives from national advertising campaigns to local buzz-generating programs. So welcome to the panel. Sarah Holoback, did I pronounce your last name?
Holoback, yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Sarah is an independent consultant, advising growth firms and investors in the interactive technology and advertising sector. Sarah is also the contributing editor of the DM News's Search Buzz newsletter, as well as a member of the Search Engine Marketing Professionals Association, which a lot of you may know as SEMPRO, Board of Directors. So welcome, Sarah. And Joseph McElroy, I got that right, is a search artist at Gigapixel Creative, among the leading experts in the online search marketing industry. Joseph was the leader of the open source SIG for the New York Software Industry Association, on the advisory board for the leading open source database, has articles published by Lutris Technologies and Open Magazine on open source business models and technology solutions, won the IBM Technical Excellence Award, and is an editor for DMOZ. And recently appointed chair of the IPTV Committee on Emerging Technology, also with SEMPRO. So maybe we'll see you come back for next month's event also. So that's it. The format basically is we're going to take questions from the audience, and since a lot of you have already tried doing search engine advertising and search engine optimization, I think you'll probably have some great questions to offer the panelists. I'm basically going to be here to try to sort of keep everything under control and also interject some questions from time to time. So let's just open it up. Who's got a question?
I'd like to know, just in general, how do you know what you're doing is effective? How do you know it's worked? How much can you move the needle by trying different things?
Who wants to jump on that one?
You're making more money?
Yeah.
But you actually pose a very good question, because you have to measure, right? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So setting a benchmark is very important. A benchmark in search engine optimization would be a baseline traffic from search, keeping in mind natural search and paid search, and starting there. And then how far you can move the needle is really contingent upon multiple things. Your site, your competition, the engines. There are many external factors. So you want to track over time, but I don't think there's a rule of thumb. It depends on your industry. That would be my answer for how do you know if you're effective, yes.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it is hard to measure what the specifics of SEO is, and so you have to sort of look at it as a whole program that you're doing online. And it's not just what's the traffic coming there; it's also dictated by the pages that people land on, how effective your sales funnels are. You know, what is your strategy for overcoming people's inhibitions from making actions? So there's a lot to be involved in developing a search strategy.
Right, and I would say from a consumer behavior perspective, if you're learning things, like let's say if you have Google Analytics set up on your site, which is a very insightful tool, learning about your customer behavior and what they're doing on your site, what they're not doing on your site, if you're able to take that information and turn it into insights and improve your site, and don't only look at revenue or conversions as something that you're successful, it's making changes along the way and improving your site and the consumer experience on your site, consider that as something positive.
I would look at it from a couple of different positions. First of all, I need to know the goal in the beginning. There are goals for branding, there are goals for conversions. Everything has its different phases, its different stages. If you're moving out to start branding and you need saturation, then you can apply a large broad swipe of search engine optimization across to have visibility. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean conversions. If you increase your rankings by search engine optimization and you start to appear very high on the first page, then you're going to increase your brand recognition. However, conversions can actually come from targeted traffic. For instance, when you start going into directed social media portals or going into, which is a bridge between social media portals and traditional search engine optimization of really doing saturation to forums that are going to bring in targeted traffic into from users who are engaged deeper in the buying process. When I do that for you, then I feel that I'm really making an effort. But I need to know, or anybody needs to know, exactly what your goal is from the start.
Does that answer your question?
That was great.
Good. All right, we're off to a good start. Can I get another question? Yeah.
What are some of the pros and cons of doing search engine marketing within a content management system? And are some of them known as being really SEO friendly? And specifically, do you have any thoughts on Drupal and SEO?
I'm going to actually ask Joseph to answer that one because I know he's got a good answer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one of the from my perspective, I've been involved in technology a lot of times. A lot of times, I see startups come and develop custom solutions, and generally, you know, they're outsourcing to very inexpensive sources. And unless you vetted those extremely carefully, you're usually going to get a very insecure system, quickly get things happening, you know, like viruses and hackers taking every site. You're going to get, you know, nobody will be able to click through from you on Google. So if you're going to go into the waters of not using something like a content management system or some base that's already sort of vetted, at least to some level, you really, you better be an expert in technology so that you know what you're getting. As for the content management systems, a lot of times you'll find that if you're configured well, using SEO-friendly caching, you know, things that make it very effective, they're a very good base for SEO campaign, search engine marketing campaign.
Are there specific ones that you might want to talk about?
Well, they already mentioned the WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. Yeah, they're the big three.
Anyone else have a comment about that?
I completely agree, and actually we had this conversation in the networking period. If you think of a blog is just that software, the content publishing piece of software, right? There's nothing really different. A blog is just a fancy way to say website. The way that content is published by pulling the title of the entry as the title tag for the page that you click through, that's very, very savvy. That's the way the world should work in SEO world. The problem is many of the more, and ironically, many of the more complex and costly content management systems initially were very, very hard to configure. And we could go through those lists, but I don't think anyone here is spending $1 million on CMS. So, Drupal, Joomla, WordPress, yes.
All right. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, so we're launching a lot of health sites, and all of them are very condition-specific focused, right? So I guess my question is, if if we do nothing except create a lot of good content that's keyword rich, how long will it take us to get some kind of search engine rankings? If we do that and we hire an outsourced SEO agency that's charging us whatever, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, how long does it take, should it take, after outsourcing to an agency to start seeing results? And what kind of results should we see?
Can I, before you guys answer that, can I just ask, is your question purely a matter of should you pay for things to get done faster? Or is your question really a matter of should I pay for things to get done better?
Fine distinction.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, like, what I'm saying is, are you looking for things to simply happen sooner?
I guess what I'm really asking is what should I expect from an outsourced SEO experience? And how do I know I'm getting my money's worth?
Okay.
Because what do I compare it to?
Good, you good?
Okay. No, this is fun. I'm not exactly sure what your experience has been so far or what you know about SEO. I'm not exactly sure whether you know about the actual link building process and what it takes to rank within Google, Yahoo, or MSN. But let me say this. First of all, I know that you've had 2 experiences previously, and I've had different experiences in my past with SEO vendors, secondary vendors, and so on and so forth, and it's very hard to be sure what's happening. Let me say this. You said 50 websites? About 50 websites. In competitive verticals?
Very.
Okay. So there in a nutshell starts the initial question. When competing against people who are pouring God knows how much money against you, and you're just going to put sites on the web and hope that they rank on the content alone, you're already up against the wall, okay? Now, they may rise at some point, they may not. But the fact of the matter is, you're in a competitive vertical where people are pushing against you. 3 people on the corner over here have salespeople and you don't have a salesperson, okay? So who's going, at the end of the day, the effort is going to get the results. Now, as far as an outsourced web development team, just for everybody who should know, and just doing a strict link building campaign to boost your ranking for those particular sites, then it comes down to effort. And the big question you really have is, I've been told, oh, I'm doing great work for you, I'm doing great work for you, I'm doing great work for you, okay? At the end of the day, if you're doing social media strategies, it is really hard to define what the strategies are and whether they have an effect. I'm sorry, I'm just running on here. Okay, but I would say that what you should know is you need to have a transparent reporting system from an SEO company. If your SEO company is indeed building links for you and they say they have a person work for you, okay, then you need to know, you should have an itemized report what each person is doing for your company and your campaign every day. There's no reason at all that transparency can't be given to you. And if that transparency is not given to you, you have no way of knowing if anything is going on. So if anybody doesn't want to do transparency, then I would question why. Okay?
Can I myth bust a little bit here? Okay, so the 2 most common myths in in-house versus out-house, agency. I don't know, I worked at a search engine marketing agency. I was the chief strategy officer of iCrossing for a few years, so I know what it's like on the inside. I also built an office there, so I know what it's like building a search competency within a search marketing firm. So and I also know that it is possible to build it in-house. So that's, the myth busting is not all SEMs are snake oil salesmen. Okay, it's a big common myth. There are a lot of people who are looking to make a quick buck, but I think transparency is a good thing to look at. Credibility, and even then, I know there's a very high turnover rate. The average life of a client is about 2 years within a SEM, and that's a given fact. If you look at the Sempo State of the Market annual survey, most people are actually unhappy with their provider, and this goes all the way up to Fortune 1000s. That's not a good thing. We in the industry need to figure out what's not happening there. So your dissatisfaction and 2 previous experiences are not completely uncommon. The other myth I'd like to bust is on the in-house side. Many people will say it's completely impossible to build search in-house. They'll say you'll never have the amount of time, you'll never have the people, you'll never have the experience. Well, that's a myth. Why? Well, SEMs weren't born SEMs. They had to build it somehow too. And if you have the resources, both time and money, access to talent and the initiative, and you make it a core part of your business, you could build it in-house. It's going to cost you something, but it's not impossible.
Sorry to interrupt, are you differentiating SEM from SEO or just?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, one bucket.
Yeah, they're both, I mean, look, they're very different practices, but building a competency is building a competency.
I mean, I agree. I mean, if you're really a content company, and I think that you should be looking at building an in-house solution. I mean, because you basically are building linking things to outsource or build, or build your own, because you're already building the content, learn how to optimize it all, learn how to do that. I mean, if you're in a B2B selling air conditioners, you probably don't want to build that competency, but in your space, I would say you probably want to build that competency.
I want to hear about your two previous experiences.
It's not that terrible. We just hired one SEO agency who promised the moon, and whatever, $5,000 or $7,500 later, there was just absolutely nothing to show. And in terms of transparency, when we asked, so you said you're building links, show us the links. Oh, we can't do that, that's proprietary. The literal response. So how do we know you're building it? We are, trust us.
You must
Okay.
have transparency. Anybody who's doing work for you should be able to.
But I also understand that SEO is not the same as SEM. SEM, you can start a campaign today and see traffic immediately.
Right.
SEO takes a lag time. So one of the parts of my question was, what is that lag time? What's a reasonable lag time? Is it 90 days? Is it 120 days? Is it 2 years until you should start seeing some results?
It could be as soon as tomorrow, it could be as long as a couple months, and there are a few factors. One is spider frequency, right? So how frequently does Google and, there are other search engines, go out and spider the web? And I'm getting really sassy tonight. I don't know what's wrong. I'm not getting a gift from Microsoft this year, I guess. How frequently they spider the web and visit your websites. There are other factors too. Sometimes, this rumored sandbox, which does actually exist, a news site might be held up for a while in Google. They're kind of going through page by page and making sure it's all legit. There are, many other factors, whether you're even being indexed at all versus indexing high and moving up. So that would be, maybe one of you guys would want to take that on, because that's a fine line between how many pages and which pages are rising for which queries.
I mean, if you're talking about indexing and the sandbox and things getting in there, I mean, there's ways to, I noticed that if you do Blogger, right? If you do blogger.com, you do your bloggers in there, and you publish them to your site, you're indexed the next day, you're getting high rankings.
Google pages are great. Yes. Well, that is a good point. If you have an immediate need, so, right, like SEO versus PPC, like the way I describe this is like reading the New York Times. SEO is like PR. You basically have to pitch a story to an editor, the spider, over and over again. The editor's whims change frequently, and you have to change your story slightly, right? I.e. change things on your website in the back end. If you need immediate and guaranteed visibility, you buy the ad. The best thing in the New York Times is there's an article about your product, and then there's an ad.
But I'd like to take issue exactly with what you said, though. I consider search engine marketing to be stall, and SEO is just a part of that, right?
Yeah.
So SEO is just,
Yes.
the thing I find is that if you do SEO and pay-per-click at the same time, the pay-per-click conversion rates get higher. All right? So, you should be looking at a comprehensive campaign, not just one or the other. You should be doing both.
Just to clarify, that there is a little bit of, as with a lot of terms in the internet industry, people use them very differently. So lots of people call SEM, search engine marketing, pay-per-click. They use those terms to mean the same thing. But what Joseph is saying, which I think a lot of us agree on, is search engine marketing really is about the broader concept of marketing your site through search engines, and you can do those things either through pay-per-click or through search engine optimization.
We've run campaigns where we've done both SEO and SEM, and like it was mentioned, the campaign overall just generates higher conversion rates, and obviously you get a lot more traffic just based on the visibility factor, but conversions once they're on the site just skyrocket, just based on the fact that there's that kind of association and leadership aspect within the space that you're running in.
Yeah, because the pay-per-click, you get a much better call to action, whereas the SEO, you get that trust factor.
And there are lots of studies and data on this, what we call the last click. The last click gets the credit, right? Which unfortunately, now search after a few years of being on top is getting beaten down a little bit because display advertisers are saying, well, why are you getting the credit? We built the awareness, right? Well, the same can be said of paid and natural search. And I think it was 360i did a really nice study using their Search Ignite data where they actually could attribute conversions on paid search from having seen natural search results and then vice versa. So there's really good data behind that.
Just to, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to cover a little bit on the basics in terms of your question about, because I think this is relevant for most people, your question about what determines how long it's going to take, whether you're doing it in-house or externally. And you guys just talked about some of the basics in terms of, it's not only the spiders, Sarah really started talking about that, it's not only the spiders, what are the other factors?
A huge, huge part is how many sites are ranking in your area. Now, give me an example. Any one of those sites, any one of the major keywords, how many people are against you?
What do you mean people?
How many websites? When you pull up a search for your major keyword in
Right.
Google, it's going to say X amount of sites are ranking against you. How many sites are ranking against? Give me
Well, a site like, we have a site understanding weight loss, so weight loss, dieting, huge category, there's 10 trillion sites.
Right. Exactly.
Like 10 million.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's, these kind of questions are asked all the time, like, you know, I want to rank for diamond engagement rank, okay? And, you know, if you think you're going to outrank Blue Nile, in the space that they did with the concerted effort that they did to build that ranking, you're really talking about a massive undertaking. There are a multitude of sites in front of you, okay? Now, to get past those sites, there's a natural climbing that the index of, let's go Google's algorithm, okay? Let's just admit it, all right? We're talking about Google. Why even kid ourselves, okay? Okay, unless you're talking about a youth market, then we can talk about Yahoo. Let's say, okay, Google's algorithm, okay? So here you have an X amount of sites in front of you, okay? Google's going to start moving you past, say you're doing everything right in a certain way. You're getting links, hard-coded text links on other sites. You're starting to get authority, you're starting to get page rank, and I don't know how many people know page rank, but it's an indication of how, what kind of quality website you have. Let's just say that's the easiest way to say it. Now, let's talk about the fact that these sites have been sitting here and you have to climb linearly past them. And this is what happens. The only way that you're going to be able to do something in a competitive market like that is to attack a part of the algorithm. And the algorithm, it's Google's algorithm. We can only make approximations. There's certain things we think no one knows. If we did, we would have built Google ourselves, okay? Google has parts of its algorithm that seems to respond incredibly well to the submission process. And that particular part of the algorithm was instilled in Google, so it wouldn't befall what happened to AltaVista. AltaVista became a very great search engine, and it was an index for everybody to look at, and it had very credible sources. It became very stale, and people moved away from it very fast. There's a part of the algorithm that seems to acknowledge immediacy. So if something is to start appearing, some show or something on television, and there's chatter, for the better word, all over the web, Google starts to pay attention.
This is like Weatherthon and when we respond to fail, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it was.
It acknowledges the immediacy. Now that immediacy is done by a massive amount of chatter and what we do to approximate that chatter, submissions to build in link popularity.
When you say
Okay.
submissions are, can you just start
Okay.
submissions to where?
Submissions to free article content places, actually trying to build a community and get people to talk about it, link through. But the truth of the matter is, when you're doing something such as you're trying to do, we are approximating a falsehood. We are creating this popularity that doesn't exist to make Google think that you have appeared on some show, you're the next coming of God, and everybody wants to know more about you. So what we do is we create articles about your company. We take those articles and we do a massive, massive amount of submissions all over the web to free article archives, repositories, and so on and so forth. This creates an intense popularity pointing towards your site. It's not hard-coded links. Let's be absolutely clear about that. It's not a link on somebody else's website, but it's talk about your website. And that immediacy triggers the algorithm to say something is happening here, and we have to exponentially move it. We've been moving you linearly, but now something is happening. And Google has to find some way to make that climb to the top, or else it will go to traffic out to this place.
So I'm gonna stop you there because
Sure.
I wanna see the, I mean, it's really key to know, and if you're building a content site, I think it's really important to understand what those factors are, because if you're doing content, it's kind of all about SEO in a lot of ways. So does anybody have any other factors besides?
Let's break
we
it
talked about
down.
link building
Let's
and-
break it down into like the 3 things you need to
Perfect.
do. So I try to make search simple. I'm not a techie. It is, you do not need to be an engineer. It's about language, right? It's language. It's really easy. The first thing you need to do is make sure a spider can get into your site. I call that bridging or avoiding obstacles. Okay, an obstacle would be something like your content management system. It would be something like frames. Don't use frames. You know, I don't know who uses frames anymore. But well, actually, no, I did see a frame thing the other day. You know, these are really common things. You can, you know, look at any search engine blog and you'll find a list of like no-nos. Those are obstacles, things that basically prevent a spider from getting in. Once the spider gets in, you want to make sure it can crawl, right? Spiders go top down, left to right, reading everything. They look at things that we don't look at. It's very ugly. If you look at like view, page, source, that's kind of what like a search engine spider sees. Like we see pretty pictures. So make sure the spider can crawl that page and make sure that content is relevant to the topic. Make sure you're doing clever things like paying attention to anchor text, right? So instead of saying click here, say weight loss, blah, 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 whatever. And then the last piece is the linking part, which is internal and external linking. So having an optimized sitemap, Google created a protocol that was accepted by the other major engines, which was actually really cool, sitemaps.org. And then external linking, which means usually inbound links, right? Outbound, inbound links. And I think what you're describing, and it was really interesting to hear you talk about it because I consider that a social media plus linking strategy, which is sort of a next step. Once you've bridged obstacles, you've optimized, you've got the right content based on what real people are searching for, not what you think they are. You've got linking. From there, you can go off and create content on the web, right? So, you know, the next thing is, well, the website's dead, right? Because Facebook can be your website, and you know, Technorati or Dig, you know, are facilitating other aspects that a website used to take care of. So that was interesting. I was very curious to see how you describe that.
I mean, I would add to those what you were talking about, though. Yes,
Great.
I would.
So come back right here.
Is that you know that what you described is perfect for getting the traffic to your site, and it's like, you know, having an event and getting a lot of people there. And then there's certain things you got to do just to get the people there. But what you really also need to do is think about what's going to happen after that, what happens after people arrive. You know, the whole value of an event and the whole value of SEO is really what happens after. All right. So, and to do that, you need to do strategy up front. You need to do really well thought out keyword research, and not only a vertical fashion but in a lateral fashion. You know, research studies have shown that people buy in binges. So what are they buying at the same time they're buying your products? All right. You look at the whole gestalt. I like that word. Of what people are doing, and so you create a really good strategy in terms of what you're going to drive traffic for, and then you really got to think about when people get there. Okay, what are you going? What's going to happen after that? All right. What's the funnel? What's the path you want to have them take? So, you know, an SEM SEO strategy really needs to take those, and then the last thing would be really about doing measurement.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, of course.
Yeah.
So we didn't answer your question, which is how long that would take. Each of those pieces, if you use an agency, usually results in a stack of papers, right? And search is a service, it's a service business, right? So it's time and materials, it's the number of people they have and the number of clients. And I've normally seen from kickoff to getting running is usually like 1 to 3 months, depending on how big or small the account is. So after those 3 months and you've done the analysis and they know your business and then you're off and running. And after they're actually implementing code, it's 1 to 6 months before you see results.
So one thing, just to wrap that up, and then move on to some more questions that I know you can definitely talk about and touched on when talking about the content management systems is, of course, you got to have the link building. There's the social media strategy, getting content published around the web. There's making sure that your site doesn't have any barriers like Flash, which of course is becoming less of a barrier, but there's also the technology element of it. When we're talking about content management tools, how is your site actually built? And having someone, if you don't have the competency to understand how your site needs to be built in order to be search engine friendly, making sure you're at least getting some advice from someone. And again, like Sarah said, there are lots of websites you can probably go to find that out, but just knowing the HTML things and the coding things that you need to do to make sure that your website is actually promoting those keywords that you've chosen in the way that it needs to do that. So, yeah.
Quick question. We were talking about how Blue Nile, for example, came up very high on wedding rings. I've heard that some big companies are also buying URLs or domain names. So if somebody could buy wedding rings or diamondrings.com or Blue Nile, is that a good investment? Is that something that, even though we don't know exactly what the black box of the algorithm is, would owning the generic names of the category keep it higher in the SEO and results?
That's interesting. I mean, yes and no. There's some evidence that yes, that is, but there's also recent evidence that big silos of information are becoming the algorithms have changed, and it's better to have a big silo site with multiple, different mini silos dedicated to different content areas. Yeah, the domain structure. Yeah, so and to some extent that trend is going away, but we don't know exactly. I don't know exactly.
Well, multinationals are definitely having a really hard time because they usually sit on one domain, and Google's actually been working with them. So I think the trend is that yes, it's going towards one silo with a very smart domain subdomain structure.
So when you say a silo, I'm not sure what that means.
If you're like Hewlett Packard, HP.com, and then is it like France.hp.com or HP.com versus having like a totally different URL? You own a great portfolio of URLs, right? So I'm assuming.
Well, I'm trying to see if there's a good argument. If somebody owned, and I don't own computers.com, but should HP want to buy desktops or laptops.com, and does that create
But I think
value?
now they would probably do desktop.hp.com. I think the trend is that direction.
Yes.
So that's going to be more important.
Because if you're multinational, the resources that they, and I actually know the head of SEO at HP, Tanya Vaughn, great lady, she's very open to talking about those things, if you're interested. Having a really, really hard time because the resources she needs to employ to accomplish her, SEO job across 180 countries, let alone products. So that matrix, that's a lot of work. So they're not going to manage.
No, that's understandable out of necessity. But for somebody like a Blue Nile, if they could own wedding rings or diamond rings, would it make sense? And is that going to elevate them in terms of the search?
I don't think they would be interested for one particular reason. Blue Nile has such authority already. They've built up the authority that they can stretch out into other verticals and leverage their authority. Authority is the name of the game. This is a big thing that you're trying to push. And once you have domain age, you have a certain amount of authority because you've just been doing SEO over and over again. You can launch pages in certain verticals that are basically running along the same line, and they'll rank much easier than if you're starting with a brand new domain that you're looking at.
It's like why Wikipedia ranks for everything.
They should take those domains and get them up.
Well, the one thing that you guys might want to touch on is it's interesting kind of looking at this from the perspective of large companies, which in your situation you're kind of considering, is this a valuable piece of property that I might want to sell to someone, right?
Or let's say you're not number one. Let's say like Avis. Let's say you're number 2 or number 3, and you want to try harder and see if you can move yourself up.
Yeah, what we're saying is Google does not, I don't think that's going to give them a, Google's not going to look at that and say, okay, that's a more relevant link.
Right.
I think what does happen, Marchex, you mentioned, they have a division of their company called Direct Navigation, which I'm sure you've heard about, which basically means when somebody types in a URL like 401k solutions, they're actively building out a template with content pulled in, a lot of ads, and they make a lot of money off of that. They do aim for it to be contextual and relevant, but the truth is it's not. This is just a...
But I would say for smaller companies, right, Blue Nile has so much depth in the industry and in search, but for smaller companies that are trying to get ranked, I mean, there is a lot of evidence to show that.
If they're brand new,
Oh, sure,
regardless.
So
sure.
let's,
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, well,
lots of
just think
people
he's trying to
probably
make-
don't know that, so.
My question is like, I thought he's asking like, who should I sell this to?
right.
Yeah.
Right?
The
I mean, was that the
point
question, or are you thinking about building something
I'm also,
on it?
in terms of speaking to somebody, to see whether or not it makes sense to make that argument.
Yeah, I do.
If you're brand new, I mean.
Well, hey, if you can find that person, great.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to buy the brand new domain,
So the bottom line is, yes, if you
Yeah.
have keywords that are really, really competitive and you can get a domain name for that keyword, there's a lot of very strong evidence to show that you have a higher chance of getting ranked if the domain name of your website is using that keyword.
if you're starting from scratch.
Right, so if you want to,
Right.
yes.
I mean, we have a demonstration here tonight, what was that, Web 100?
Exactly.
Right, you know, and that proves the point right there. Yeah, and if you're brand new and you do have a keyword in your domain and it's on top, you know.
So
well,
those
that's gonna
might
get
be
you
better
somewhere.
companies pointing for you to target, but a large company that's already successful in search, they're probably not going to be.
Unless it's tied to a new product launch. You mentioned GM, so
There's no
that,
branding,
right.
branding.
That's great.
So let's take another question. Yes, you.
This is a very fundamental question. Okay. If you're a startup, how and what tangent do you have to draw between SEO and SEM to derive the maximum benefits electronically?
I didn't understand the question.
I didn't understand exactly, but what I would say is, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I would say what you would do is start off your SEM campaign first, your pay-per-click campaign, and use that data to determine what words you're gonna then SEO. Because you can switch back and forth and try a great deal of things to see what converts for you. And then once you find out what converts for you, then you should start SEOing individual parts of your site for those words. That,
Then my question was, what and when and how would you draw a tangent between SEO and SEM, two different entities, to derive the maximum benefit out of your product or services that you're offering through your website electronically?
So is the question like, should I do both or should I do neither?
How would you approach both the processes, SEO and SEM, to derive the maximum benefits at a single point of time? Supposedly, you don't want to do your SEM part organically and you want to conduct it, electronically. How would you draw the tangent between them? How would you go in hand at the same point of time and without, analytics and everything? What are the processes involved in drawing that tangent right from the basic, right from the scratch, right from the basic level?
So
How would you start?
Are you
and
saying how do you build an SEM campaign and
Yeah.
how do you build an SEO campaign?
Yeah, at the same point of time, trying to escalate your product, your value, your brand value or your service value at the same point of time. How would you do that? What are the approaches, right, starting from the very beginning, like you launch a website, and
Yeah.
you started from the
I
very
think-
beginning.
I think the things that, so it basically, how do you build a campaign for each of those two tactics, search engine advertising and search engine optimization, right? Or marketing, search engine marketing. But I think some of the things that we talked about are basically directly answering that question. So you want to do link building, right? You want to make sure that you're publishing content, or if you can get content published about your website and your product on other people's websites. So this is, I'm just regurgitating kind of everything that they said. Making sure you get content about your products and your website published in other places so that there's a certain amount of buzz being created about you over the internet, over the web. You want to make sure that you build your website in a way that's search engine friendly. We can go into lots of detail about the HTML code and other kinds of things that are required to make sure that you do that. And then of course you want to make sure that when people get to your website, you're actually building it to convert them into something. So you don't want to just get people there. You want to make sure that once they get there, there's some kind of series of calls to action, right, that you want them to do. So you either want them to buy something, you want them to pick up the phone because you're a consulting business, you want them to send you an email to set up a consultation, you want them to read lots of pages so that you can get advertising revenue. So hopefully
There is
that,
a difference involved when you're offering services and when you're offering products to
yes,
your website.
yes.
So how would you, what is the difference of intent? Like, there must be a different case scenario when you're offering product to your website for your SEO and SEM campaign, and when you're offering services to your website, and you will, and the same thing.
Do you guys want to address that one?
What, the difference
The
between?
services and products?
So basically, the difference between SEO and SEM for e-commerce versus lead generation.
In general, I would emphasize SEO on the service side and pay per click on the product side. I would use both all the time, but that probably be the way I would look at it.
Depends how popular the product is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you made a very good articulation about spiders entering and spiders crawling. Now, if I only have a finite amount of time and I'm building designing a site and I'm on a limited budget, what are the top killers that you see to this spider getting in and being able to crawl effectively? Like, in all of your experience, the top 5 or preferably 10 things? That's the first question. Sorry, and I have a lot. Second one's good too. So for you said that you need to register your content on other free sites to make it seem very sort of real time that it's happening now. Same thing if I'm finite, if I have no time, if I have only an hour or 2 hours to register all this information. What are right now the top 3 or 4 sites that you think that content should go on? So just those 2 questions. Thank
So
you.
maybe we can start with one tip each. Try to for the first question.
Yeah, sorry, it's pretty big.
So obstacles specifically?
What are the obstacles to getting the spiders to call your site?
All bad internal linking structure, use of frames. There's
Content management system, structure.
So when,
The top 5.
Well, first off, where are you? Like, how many decisions have you made? Like, have you already picked your content management system, or is it still like
WordPress.
WordPress? Okay, and is the content on the site, and you need to optimize, or have you just not built yet? You deployed?
Not built yet.
Perfect. This is the best time to be
That's
thinking
why I'm
about this.
asking.
Yes.
That's where I
It
am.
is going to cost you far more to optimize a site later on than it is to build a site search in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you build a search in mind?
Okay, so what's really cool here is that you've got a lot of CEOs, right? And one of my points from Aisha was make search a priority in your company. And that has to come top down. Now, usually in a Fortune 1000, I'm sure you see this every day, you're talking to some mid to low level search guy at IBM, who's got IBM, they have great search programs, some other company, saying like, here's my data, give me a budget for search. But you're the CEOs and you're here, which means that you can put search in your budget. Which means just like everything else you're spending on, search needs to be priority. Whether it's somebody you hire or someone you outsource to or your own management time, make sure that's in your budget every year. It's ongoing. You don't do it once and it's over.
So I'm just going to interrupt because I know that we want to talk about this actual tactics, right?
Well, I was going to say that it's very important from as the CEO perspective is, the biggest problem I run into most of the time is that you have a separate technology or a web team that doesn't really understand SEO, and they want somebody to come in and do SEO, but then the technology web team doesn't want to work with you, and then it becomes impossible to really do anything.
So technically speaking, get them in the same room.
And they should be, you got to either very clear, beautiful communications, or have the SEO be an integral part of the technology web team, or you're just going to face miserable failure.
All right.
Just to keep in mind, we're answering what are the ways to prevent your site from having technical barriers to the spider.
When you're designing it, what do you want to do?
All right, here.
Okay,
Let's go here for a second. Okay. Now you definitely said on using WordPress. Okay. Right. WordPress, and are you using WordPress on your own domain or are you using WordPress at WordPress.com?
Own domain.
Your own domain. Okay, great. So right off the bat, there's a million things that you probably heard, like Flash is a problem, and getting there could be obstacles in the way of spiders. Okay, since you have control of your own WordPress template, what you want to make sure is that any additional coding that can be offloaded, external coding. Do you know what this means? Okay, great. First thing you want to do is you want to reduce any additional coding that's going to be within your head element. That's going to create possible. First of all, it's going to create a longer rendering time for the page, which is most important. If you plan to do SEM, pay-per-click, the new quality score of Google, the fourth element, is how long your page takes to load. Okay, reducing the code in the head is going to make the browser render engine render it faster for your client, your visitors, and when the AdWords Spider looks at your site and loads your site, the quality score, that fourth element, is going to be in your favor. If you can have as much coding that it takes to run the CSS coding externalized.
And JavaScript.
Okay, and JavaScript coding. And Dreamweaver 4 now externalizes the JavaScript core. It's another one. Okay, now, moving on in, as we all know, Flash is a scary little animal here that we have to worry. It's not as bad as it used to be. Everybody's so afraid of it, but it's really not as bad as it used to be. If you were using WordPress and you were, if you weren't using WordPress, I would immediately say within your CSS layout. Are you familiar with CSS? Okay. CSS is an advanced level of HTML, and there's a version of CSS called absolute position. And in absolute position, what you can do is you can relegate the flash out of the way of the essential content, and you can really organize the structuring of your website well. Okay. In WordPress, I would say when you're choosing a theme and you're thinking about inserting things, we all have wonderful ideas of what we're going to insert, but at the end of the day, this website has to look to the spiders as a relevant piece of information. The coding must be organized and the content must be organized. Okay? So when you're building and developing, constantly refer to whatever you do and how it affects the coding. You should try to make your content as organized as possible. Like a
What do
college.
you mean by that, making your concept organized?
Well, think about this. Google is #1 information retrieval source. You put in dog kennels, Google's job is to return a page, perfectly optimized page about dog kennels. These guys created this algorithm, and they created it to respect a well-written page, okay? And that's where we come to the point of headings and the way of classical English.
You're talking about source code, right?
Yes, source
Let
code.
me that clear.
Okay, sorry. But I imagine this gentleman here who's building this WordPress site already knows. So anyway, so basically what you just want to have is an organized page. You want to get as much scripting out of the heads as possible, and you want to be careful of how you lay out Flash in front of the content, okay?
So, does that make sense to everybody? Yes, okay. So
Can I ask
making
your
sure that
organized
making sure that you separate, basically making sure you separate the text of the page as much as possible from the code. And then
Yeah,
making
so I was
sure that
gonna
you
say-
have a really good internal linking structure so that the search engines can actually find all of the existing pages on your site.
There's so many
I'm
elements.
gonna actually move on, because there's tons of questions, yeah.
Just you mentioned getting your tech guys to work, you move this work to outside. How do you incent technology people to work well with SEO? And the second one is very easy, is widgets, are they being inspired by your internet? Is that like a mini site too?
You know, I'm not the best person to ask for that, because I usually politics and get control of the whole thing, and then just tell them what to do. So she didn't start from
How do you
the-
get people to work together? You just make it part of the incentive, right? Everyone gets paid at the end of the day, so you've got to talk to the designer, the developer, make sure they're both educated, make sure that they, and the information architect, make sure that they all own the process and they own the results. Maybe compensation is even tied to, working together and showing that result. But education is going to be a part. IT guys like to hang on to sites. They don't like anyone touching. I'm seeing lots of heads right now. They don't like anyone touching their domain. There's and likewise, designers usually like things that are pretty and pictures. And unfortunately, spiders don't see those. So making sure they're educated and they know those things. Send them to a conference together, maybe.
I would say maybe have them work with the same person. So that there's somebody watching how they interact with all.
Yeah, it's generally if it's somebody that has.
Sounds like you're doing a great job,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
What tends to work when you have two groups of specialists who may or may not be friendly is what pardon the expression, English to nerd translation measures. Also, I would ask you folks, as part of the aftermath of this, if you each pick a glossary page that is SEO specific and centric and share it with us. I admit my ignorance. SEO terrifies me. I don't do it. I have nothing to do with it. I farm. Whenever the subject comes out, I say, get a specialist. So a glossary helps newcomers, like myself. It helps the business people not feel as ignorant and as unwilling to participate. Because a lot of them will sit there silently, and silence does not mean approval, it means befuddlement, and I don't want to embarrass them.
So this actually speaks to your question, which is making sure that there are people in your organization that have the competency or at least have the tools to learn it. So that would be great. Maybe after the event we can.
An English to
you
nerd
guys
translation,
can
or if
do
you
that.
pardon me for saying it, an SEO to English and an SEO to business matrix. You threw a lot of terms. I'm sorry, I'm not stupid, but my eyes are glazing over, and I need your help in understanding this better.
So we've got, I'm going to interrupt because we've only got a few minutes left, and we're going to see if we can get a couple more questions.
Thank you.
in. You've been waiting for a long time, sir.
This actually kind of ties into what she was mentioning about widgets and kind of you spoke about on Flash. What are some tips when you're, say you're a media-based site or like a YouTube, for example, and some of your core elements have to do with these languages and technologies that search engines don't necessarily leverage on them? What are some tips to kind of optimize your content or site around that to make your pages search engine friendly?
What's the back end?
Drupal.
Ah, that's his territory.
And I read an article recently that Adobe actually released like some, I guess something on Flash to Google.
Yeah, they're trying to help Google make Flash more search engine friendly.
Is that something that Google's actually implementing?
They're supposedly in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, transcripts are always good, whatever it's media, but you know, if you sit around and wait long enough, basically Google's releasing all sorts of tools to go through media and translate what's being said. And so some of that is going to, it's coming where, then you'll be optimizing what you say in video.
Yeah.
So your first question is how to optimize if your site is heavily digitized. So you've got lots of widgets
Let's
that are
say you're
using
just a
technology.
media-based site and you're using like Flash, for example, something search engines don't like. What is the best way? I mean, what are like tips on
Static copy somewhere on that page, high up preferably. Make sure that static copy is, when I say static copy, that's just HTML text, that is relevant to what real people are searching for. I haven't really heard about widgets bouncing a spider out, but I could understand how that could be problematic. I think most of the widgets today come out of Web 2.0-ish kind of Drupal-ish companies, so I'm not so concerned about that. There is, on a slightly related topic, there are a couple of really cool companies extending search through widgets and search visibility and semantic advertising. I think it's got Dapper and Ramp Digital. Check those out.
Yeah, I think Sarah's right on point, that if you've got some sort of technology that is not readable by the search engines, you have to give them good text somewhere on your site. I've seen a lot of sites that actually rank really well. They're totally Flash built, but they separate each page as a different Flash movie, and then beneath that Flash movie, there's an HTML page that people might not see with real content, real text. Yeah, so I'm gonna actually move on because I want to try to get more people into. Yeah.
I have a question about social bookmarking and what that does to your SEO score. If you have an article that's digged a lot or that's sounds delicious, does that have an impact? And
yes.
There you go.
30 minutes. It'll take 30 minutes if you do it right. You'll get a roller.
What percentage of, he was going off, you work for an SEO firm, right? You were going off about social networks for a while. And I'm wondering what percentage of these SEO firms are now relying on social media optimization versus search engine optimization? Because 10 years ago, my company didn't have the social networks. They had to build like 50 different sites, the one I'm working for. And I'm optimizing all those now, and it sucks. I'd rather just go to Dig, Facebook, and YouTube and have a wild time there.
So are you basically saying, can you start replacing search engine optimization with social media?
Yeah, and if not, what percentage are you saying should I be concentrating on social media versus the traditional SEO?
Great question.
Well, 100% of SEMs are offering social media optimization. So that's your first question.
Okay.
It does not replace SEO. It's incremental revenue for them, and it works.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you want to talk about how much?
What percentage?
Yeah, good.
What percentage?
My boss knows it works. It's just I don't want how much percentage of my day.
What percentage of resources should be spent on social media?
Well, it also depends on the vertical. It depends on a few things. It depends on the vertical. It depends on how competitive it is. Social media optimization will bring in a great deal of link popularity. It will certainly bolster your site. Hi, Adam.
So
okay,
it
I would
sounds
wait.
is there
wait.
sort of...
Well, the thing is, I would say, it depends on, this is not an easy question. It's such a
I didn't mean to, I really
I know,
didn't mean to.
but it's such a
My
wide
boss is
question.
obsessed with it.
Let me just say this.
Obsessed with social
Okay,
media.
social media optimization versus SEM going across, SEO. You're always going to have, you're going to get a push out of social media optimization, okay? You're going to get a big push. And it's always going to be an effort, okay? The residual effect is the cost at this particular point. If you properly SEO your campaign and you start to get rankings across a broad swipe of the long tail and long tails with many different keywords, it's going to really have brand recognition and it's going to work towards creating a household name. Social media optimization means that you don't get that residual. You don't get rankings and they shoot up to your number 2 and they gently go down to number 5 and you have to rethink about them again and work on them and do linkage strategies. Social media optimization, yeah, you're big. You hit the front page, you're big, and that's really good. That's really great. You know, I don't do that, but I totally respect those aspects. But that effort has to continue.
So there isn't really an answer to that question. But
So SEO's longevity.
This is
yeah. But the point is, it's something as opposed to regular SEO.
So SEO's longevity, SMO is just now.
It's extended reach.
Yeah.
It's extended reach, right? So only a certain amount of people will be searching for your term and go to your website. There are other populations that sit in walled gardens like Facebook or MySpace or Dig. So you can extend your reach by being on these sites, but I think what we alluded to earlier is there is frequently an SEO benefit in the Google index to digging. So for example, if there's a great article about your company, by all means dig it. Be very clever with how you name the title and the description, and if you've got a little Google alert set up for your company, literally in 30 minutes you're going to get a Google alert, and if you do a quick query, you will probably be one of the first few results on a Google page for that query. So there is a side effect within the Google index. That being said, as the web gets more social, so will Google and quite frankly, we're junkie of the web.
And it's only going to be on the first page
for a while. But if you've got something newsworthy, and you want extended reach, that's totally legitimate.
Thank you.
Question. Thinking business opportunity in your industry. What about the other side, which is this press corps and reputation that gave people off to the front page? How's that? And the other question I have is in terms of starting up or creating a domain with other top-level domains, say besides.com and .net, we're now going into other .us or .mobile. How is that affecting SEO? And also the way in which people are creating names now that are large. So in order to use 3 words on new names. And how does that affect SEO?
So just to make sure, your first question is about how to get people off of Google?
Yeah, from a business opportunity standpoint in the SEO industry, it's actually become a big thing. Because I think it started on the PR side.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to just say yes. We're going to move on to your next question, which is what effects those other top-level domains have on, like, are you saying if you get additional ones? Or if you get .mobile instead of?
Choosing domain names.
There's no difference.
Because it's the same domain, you're just adding it.
Don't waste your time.
Right.
And then your third question was?
Don't waste your time.
Don't worry about .us versus .com.
Don't worry.
Well, you might want to hold it if you have a competitive concern, but don't build out something that's actually frowned upon if you're trying to.
For SEO value, there's no difference.
And your third question was?
Long names.
Long names.
I think people are doing that a long time because people can remember, like, I went skiing.com, it's like.
But does that have any SEO value?
It can if it has keywords in it and you're doing a brand new site, but I think a lot of those are really for branding or for memory.
Where all the good ones are stolen.
Right.
The gentleman behind you bought all the other ones.
So one more question. Yeah.
Yes, I actually, that gentleman asked a question, part of the question for me. My question was related to the Flash, the videos, because a lot of, like at mine, website, I'm thinking about using the video to do the advertisement on my website, so it can be more user-friendly. However, so as you guys saying, it's going to be obstacle to the crowd, to the crawlers, the spiders to crawl through. So my question then is that, is it going just the spider just is going to ignore that part, or it's going to hurt the rest of my content?
Can you clarify, you're talking about having a video element?
Yes,
Yeah.
if I had
Like an
a
embedded
video
Okay.
element
Yeah,
in my website,
Okay.
is it going to hurt?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just that part is not going to be
It's not gonna hurt,
visible.
it's being ignored.
Well, it can help you if you optimize video.
Yeah, that's true.
What did you say?
Optimize video.
It's actually something that Google might start taking a look at. There's a couple of technology companies, media companies that are doing that are incorporating audio recognition.
So they go through an extra commercial.
Yeah. There's a company called Blinks, which is a similar Blinks, BLINKX, which is a similar website to YouTube, and they have, you know, for professionally produced content as well as user-generated content. And what it does is, if there's a video that you're interested in, or a certain that falls within a certain category of keywords, you can actually get the technology to pick up an audio, and that triggers an ad within the actual unit, video unit. So I'm pretty sure that Google's going to start getting into
Google
it.
actually announced for the political campaign, in the political section of YouTube, they're going through and converting the sound into text.
So I mean,
So the Blinks is going to be, I mean, I upload the video to them, and they build the optimized video back to me?
Well, they will optimize
Well, there's a lot of things. Okay, so video optimization is actually kind of archaic. It's like what search engine optimization looked like a long time ago. It's like metadata and transcription, right? So it's not that hard. You can just Google video optimization and you'll get the top 10 things you need to do. Another thing we should mention is that Google loves video. When Google shifted over to universal search, which means blended results, not just text results of websites, but including news results, image results, and video results, you'll notice a greater frequency of video, and YouTube quite frequently. Although they say there's no correlation.
And bloggers either.
Yeah, no. So, you know, I would say put your videos on YouTube and then embed that on your site. That's ultra light.
Yeah. So I think that's about it.
That's great, yeah.
That's all we can handle.
Yeah. And we are going, for those of you who can stick around for a little while, we're going around the corner to Mustang Harry's for drinks. Maybe some of the panelists can answer some more questions over there. Stick around.